Do machines develop a consciousness? We should at least expect this, says the philosopher of consciousness Jeff Sebo in an interview. But what does this mean for our dealings with computers or vacuum robots? Interview by Niels Althaus. Just a few years ago, anyone who claimed that AI could develop a consciousness was ridiculed. Jeff Sebo, professor of philosophy at New York University, says in his new book, The Moral Circle, that we can no longer ignore this possibility. Jeff Sebo, would you kick your vacuum robot when you're angry? No, I wouldn't. Why not? Firstly, because it was quite expensive. Secondly, because I think the way I deal with this robot now will influence how I deal with future robots and AI systems. My current vacuum robot doesn't have a consciousness yet, but in 5 or 10 years' time, AI systems could have one and therefore become morally significant. How would we even recognize that an AI has consciousness? Conscious experiences cannot be observed directly, but there are a number of indicators that correlate with consciousness. In AI programs, for example, we look for computer, architectural, or algorithmic features that enable processes such as perception, learning ability, memory formation, goal-oriented behavior, or flexible decision-making. None of these indicators is conclusive proof of the existence of consciousness, but the more of them we find, the higher the probability. What indicators can be found in today's chatbots, such as ChatGPT or Claude? At the moment, we don't see many indications that these characteristics could already be present, but this is starting to shift. In the past month, AI companies have been talking more and more about the introduction of AI agents that are supposed to have more freedom of action. Such systems could already have several awareness indicators. AI companies are working hard to equip their systems with capabilities related to conscious experience. A minority of your colleagues are of the opinion that consciousness is only possible in principle with biological matter, i.e., nerve cells and brains. What is your response to this? You can respond with a thought experiment by David Chalmers, a philosopher and consciousness researcher at New York University, editor's note. Let's imagine that we successively replace all the nerve cells in the brain of a test subject with functionally equivalent computer chips. These pick up the electrical signals from nerve cells, process them, and in turn transmit signals, just as nerve cells do. The person confirms having sensations throughout the process, even at the end when every single nerve cell has been replaced. Are we to assume that the person in fact no longer feels anything, even though they are behaving completely normally and complaining of pain, for example? Even if you follow this philosophical argument, how much does current reality have to do with it? Modern brain-computer interfaces, such as those from Neuralink, show that the signals from nerve cells can interact with digital signals. However, even if one is fundamentally skeptical about digital consciousness, it would be premature to rule out this possibility given the current evidence. Why? If you ask philosophers how small a probability must be for it to be morally negligible, you get answers of 1 in 1,000 or less. This means that if the probability that an AI could have a consciousness is 1 in 1,000 or more, we have to take this possibility seriously. Robert Long and I have shown in a research report that even with conservative assumptions, this probability will realistically be exceeded by 2030. This is true even if we assume an 80% probability that consciousness fundamentally requires a biological substrate. And 80% is already extremely high given our incomplete understanding of consciousness. It therefore contradicts all current risk ethics theories if we simply ignore the possibility of artificial consciousness. David Chalmers has also commented on this. In a lecture 2 years ago, he estimated the probability that AIs will have sentience in the early 2030s at over 20%. Why is his estimate much higher than yours? My personal estimate is also in this range. In the report, however, we have not formulated our personal opinion, but rather what emerges when you consider a broad spectrum of currently held theories. When I talk to decision makers, I want to be able to say, look, even if we make these and those skeptical assumptions, in the end, we still have a 1 in 1,000 or higher chance that AI needs to be morally considered. This is not negligible in terms of risk ethics. And if you want to estimate the probability of consciousness in a cactus or a pocket calculator, The same basic assumptions would result in a lower probability for both, although plants at least warrant further investigation due to their more complex behavior. If consciousness is suddenly lurking everywhere, aren't we threatened with complete paralysis? I would never be able to switch off the computer with a clear conscience. I think confusion is the correct attitude. Consciousness is one of the greatest scientific and philosophical mysteries. Even for us humans, we struggle to explain it. At the same time, the stakes are incredibly high. If we develop AI systems capable of consciousness, we run the risk of creating sentient beings in unimaginable numbers and possibly not even realizing it. That would be devastating. But the opposite also harbors risks. If we assume consciousness in AI systems where there is none, we could waste resources on them that we would be better off allocating to humans or animals. Let's assume that AI consciousness becomes a reality. What will human interests matter then? I am definitely not saying that we humans should make significant sacrifices to promote the well-being of AI. But neither should we leave it at the status quo, with only a few dozen people worldwide working on AI awareness issues. We could easily put a few hundred or thousand people on it without reducing the investment in our own well-being, our rights, or the environment. What measures do you have in mind? AI companies need to recognize that the well-being of AI is a serious issue. They should start checking their systems for awareness indicators, and they should prepare guidelines on how to deal with AI that might have consciousness. Leading AI company Anthropic has recently set a good example by hiring an AI welfare expert. Others should take similar steps. Do we end users also need to adapt our behavior? If we avoid kicking robotic vacuum cleaners and show them a little respect, that's enough for now.